Konbanwa, conscious and often overly busy souls. I am Naomi, and from this corner of serenity where the only clock ticking is the slow dripping of water in the stone basin in the garden, that tsukubai that invites purification before entering the tea room, I warmly welcome you to Minimalist Charm. Today, I want to invite you to explore one of the most beautiful and perhaps most necessary paradoxes of our era, the Japanese relationship with time, and how surprisingly the art of doing nothing may be the best kept secret to true productivity and fulfillment, one that nourishes the soul as much as it meets the demands of the world. Recently, I watched my grandmother Akiko sitting on the engawa, that wooden corridor polished by years and seasons that surrounds traditional Japanese houses and serves as a bridge between the interior and the garden. She was simply contemplating the spring rain falling on her small rock and moss garden, that karasansui she had designed herself with such love and patience. She wasn't reading, talking, or checking any devices. She was just there, present, her back straight but relaxed, her eyes following the silvery trail of raindrops on the leaves of the Japanese maple, the momiji, which were beginning to unfold their emerald color. To a hurried observer, imbued with the Western mindset of constant efficiency, it might have seemed that she was wasting time, that she was being unproductive. However, her face was marked by a deep peace, a kind of silent recharging, as if she were absorbing the very essence of nature. Later, I saw her tackle her tasks, preparing dinner, practicing her daily calligraphy, repairing a rice paper screen, with a serene energy, impeccable concentration, and subtle joy. In that contrast between contemplative stillness and effective action lies a profound wisdom that our modern culture seems to have forgotten. Many of us live trapped in the tyranny of constant productivity, in a culture that glorifies being busy as if it were a badge of honor. Our schedules are packed to the last minute, our minds saturated with information and to-do lists, and the feeling of not having enough time is a universal complaint. A lament that echoes in offices, homes, and even in our moments of supposed leisure. We feel like hamsters on a wheel, running endlessly, often without knowing where we are going, driven by internal and external pressure to do more, be more, achieve more. Rest, the simple act of doing nothing, is often tinged with guilt, as if it were an undeserved luxury or a sign of laziness. But what if this relentless race is precisely what saps our vital energy, our innate creativity, and our ability to do truly meaningful and satisfying work? Japanese minimalism, with its emphasis on essence, intention, elegant simplicity, and harmony with natural rhythms, offers us a radically different perspective on time and productivity. Today I want to share with you some reflections inspired by this ancient vision, to unravel together the paradox of Japanese time and discover how integrating moments of intentional stillness is not only possible, but essential to transforming our relationship with work, with ourselves, and with life itself. One of the first revelations this perspective offered me, and which my grandmother Akiko embodied with astonishing naturalness, is the immense power of ma applied not only to space, but also to time. We have spoken on other occasions about ma as that empty space in Japanese aesthetics, that meaningful interval between objects in an ikebana flower arrangement, or between notes in a piece of music, which gives value, depth, and meaning to what surrounds it. But ma is also crucial, vital, I would say, in our management of time, in the fabric of our days. It refers to those deliberate pauses, those spaces between activities, which in our Western culture we tend to frantically fill with more tasks, with our cell phones, with anything that avoids the dreaded emptiness. Instead of seeing these moments as wasted time or inefficiency, Japanese wisdom considers them essential for recharging our vital energy, for the deep reflection that precedes wise action, and for the true efficiency that comes from clarity rather than overwhelm. A life without temporary ma is like a piece of music without silences, without pauses that allow the melody to breathe, an exhausting cacophony, a constant tension that inevitably leads to burnout. I remember Isabella, a brilliant and passionate marketing executive in Madrid, whom I met at one of my workshops on minimalism and well-being. Her schedule was a veritable Tetris game of back-to-back meetings, urgent deadlines, and unavoidable social commitments. Her energy, vibrant at first, had been sapped by the weight of her own high expectations. "Naomi, I feel like I'm running a marathon with no finish line, and if I stop for a second, I'll collapse or someone will overtake me," she confessed to me, in a voice tinged with exhaustion, her face pale and her dark circles betraying long nights of insomnia and a mind that never stopped spinning. "I love my job, I really do, but I'm losing my joy, and my creativity, which used to be my greatest strength, is now in tatters. Sometimes I feel like a machine that just produces, but has forgotten how to feel." I suggested something that at first seemed completely counterintuitive, almost heresy in her high-speed world, introducing small Ma breaks into her day. Not long breaks that she felt she couldn't afford, but micro moments of intentional disconnection. 5, maybe 10 minutes between meetings, to simply look away from the screen, look out the window, and observe the Madrid sky, breathe deeply, feeling the air enter and leave her lungs, or prepare and drink a cup of green tea in silence, without checking her phone, without planning the next task. At first, she confessed that she found it extremely difficult. She felt an almost physical urge to make the most of every second, the guilt of not doing anything productive. But she persevered, with the discipline of someone learning a new skill. Little by little, those small, empty spaces began to have a surprising effect. She returned to her tasks with greater mental clarity, less stress, and curiously with fresher ideas and more creative solutions to the problems that had previously paralyzed her. "It's as if those 5 minutes of nothing give me space for my mind to breathe, for ideas to settle like gold dust at the bottom of a bowl of clear water," she told me weeks later, with a renewed sparkle in her eyes and a more genuine smile. "Even my migraines have decreased." Perhaps you could start there. Identify 2 or 3 moments in your day where you can insert a brief Ma pause, a conscious breath before jumping into the next task. It's not wasting time. It's investing in your own clarity and well-being. This appreciation for Ma, for those oases of stillness amid the hustle and bustle, naturally leads us to cultivate a deeper state, a quality of being known in Japan as yutori. Yutori is a beautiful and subtle Japanese word, difficult to translate into a single word in our language, but it evokes a sense of inner and outer spaciousness, of deep calm, of not being in a rush, of feeling that you have enough time and resources, both internal and external, to face whatever comes your way. It is not simply the absence of stress or passivity, but a relaxed presence, a serene confidence in the flow of life and in one's own ability to navigate it. While Ma is the active, deliberate pauses we create, yutori is the atmosphere, the mood, the quality that permeates our overall approach to time and tasks. It's like moving through life with the feeling of wearing a loose and comfortable kimono, which allows for free and elegant movement, rather than a rigid and constricting suit of armor that limits our breathing and spontaneity. I think of Mateo, a young university student in Buenos Aires, intelligent and sensitive, who felt literally crushed by academic pressure, family expectations, and his own demands for an uncertain future. He lived in a constant state of anxiety, fearing he would not measure up, feeling that time was slipping through his fingers like fine sand. His study days were long and exhausting, often lasting until the early hours of the morning, fueled by coffee and the feeling that he was never doing enough, but his performance did not improve, and his physical and mental health suffered. Talking about his situation, we explored the concept of yutori. I suggested that instead of trying to study more hours, he try studying with more yutori. This meant approaching his study sessions not as a battle against the clock or against himself, but with a more relaxed and spacious attitude, allowing himself regular breaks, making sure he got enough sleep, eating well, and above all, freeing himself from fierce and constant self-criticism when he didn't understand something right away or when he felt he wasn't progressing at the expected pace. It was about creating a mental space of slack, of kindness towards himself. Gradually, with effort and practice, Mateo discovered that by reducing the internal pressure and allowing himself to approach his studies with this yutori quality, his ability to concentrate improved significantly. He retained more information, and paradoxically, he needed fewer hours to achieve the same or even better results. His anxiety decreased significantly, and he even rediscovered a certain pleasure in learning that he had lost. Our society often confuses constant movement with progress, and frantic haste with efficiency. Yutori teaches us that true effectiveness, the kind that is sustainable and nourishing, comes from an inner state of calm, confidence, and spaciousness. And so we arrive at a practice that might seem even more radical, almost subversive, to the Western mindset obsessed with action and visible performance, the art of boketo. This wonderful Japanese word, which has no exact equivalent in English, describes the act of staring into the distance without thinking about anything in particular, of losing oneself in empty, serene contemplation with no apparent purpose. It is not laziness, nor boredom in the negative sense, nor even daydreaming about something specific. It is an active form of doing nothing, a voluntary disconnection from the torrent of thoughts and stimuli, which allows the mind to enter a state of deep and restorative rest, similar to a reboot of our internal computer operating system. In those moments of boketo, when we stop actively directing our thoughts, when we let go of the reins of the analytical mind, it is often when the most unexpected ideas arise, creative solutions to complex problems that had us stuck, or simply a deep and comforting sense of peace and connection with our surroundings. My grandmother Akiko was a master of boketo. She could spend long periods of time sitting on the engawa, simply watching the clouds change shape in the blue sky, or the hypnotic movement of the koi carp in the small garden pond. She wasn't looking for anything. She wasn't expecting anything. These were her moments of invisible recharging, as she called them, as essential to her well-being as the air she breathed. I have discovered the transformative power of boketo in my own life. In periods of intense mental activity, when I feel like my head is about to explode from the amount of information or decisions I have to process, or when I feel creatively blocked and words or ideas are not flowing, I allow myself a few minutes to simply sit by the window in my study, which overlooks a small bamboo garden, and let my gaze wander to the horizon, to the swaying of the leaves without expectations, without forcing anything. It's amazing how, after these empty baths, the mind feels clearer, lighter, and ideas flow with surprising ease, like a spring that has found its channel. I met Julian, a talented and renowned architect in Mexico City, who was going through a severe creative block on a very important project. He was frustrated, pressured by deadlines, and inspiration seemed to have completely abandoned him. His studio was littered with discarded sketches, and his spirits were low. I told him about boketo. At first he looked at me with a mixture of courtesy and skepticism. "How am I going to solve this complex design by staring into space, Naomi? I need to concentrate more, work harder," he said, reflecting the prevailing mindset. I encouraged him to try it as a simple experiment, without any expectations. I suggested he spend 15 minutes a day, perhaps mid-morning, sitting on his balcony overlooking a park full of jacaranda trees, and simply do nothing, just look, allowing his mind to quiet down. A few days later she called me, her voice sounding different, lighter, almost euphoric. "Naomi, it's amazing, I can't believe it." During one of those no-thinking sessions, as I watched the wind blow the purple flowers of the jacaranda trees, bang! The solution I'd been looking for weeks appeared, the key to the design. It's as if my mind needed that emptiness, that space, to reorganize itself and connect the pieces in a new way. Try to set aside a few minutes a day for your own boketo. Find a quiet place, perhaps in nature, or simply looking out a window. Allow your gaze to rest on something distant, without focusing on anything in particular, and just be without any agenda, without any purpose. Observe what happens. This intentional doing nothing, whether through yutori, or boketo, is not, of course, a call for perpetual inaction or irresponsibility. Rather, it is the essential counterpoint, the indispensable companion to focused and meaningful action. Japanese wisdom, visible in its artisans and contemplative practices, teaches us that true productivity, the kind that is sustainable and produces works of quality and beauty, does not arise from constant, frenetic, and exhausting effort, but from a balanced and harmonious rhythm between intense concentration and generous, restorative rest. Think of a traditional Japanese craftsman, a master potter shaping a bowl on the wheel, or a calligrapher tracing an ideogram on rice paper. When he works, his concentration is absolute, every movement precise, economical and deliberate, the result of years of practice. There is no unnecessary haste, but neither is there any distraction or hesitation. Their mind, body, and spirit are completely immersed in the task at hand. And when they rest, they do so fully, allowing their body and mind to recover completely, perhaps enjoying nature, a quiet conversation, or simple contemplation. It is this virtuous cycle of focused action and deep rest that allows for excellence, mastery, and long-term sustainability, avoiding the dreaded karoshi, death from overwork, that has unfortunately also affected modern Japanese society. Elena, a wonderful and dedicated textile artisan from Lima, Peru, creates tapestries of astonishing beauty and complexity, inspired by the ancestral designs of her homeland, but with a unique contemporary twist. When I asked her about her creative process and remarkable productivity, she described how she works in blocks of intense concentration, isolating herself from all distractions in her small, bright workshop, surrounded by vibrantly colored alpaca threads. But just as important, she told me with a serene smile, are her long walks along the boardwalk looking out at the Pacific Ocean, her moments of meditation at sunrise, or simply the time she spends preparing and enjoying an aromatic herbal infusion in her garden. It is in those moments of apparent doing nothing, Naomi, she explained in her soft voice, that my mind clears like the sky after rain, when the colors and shapes for my next tapestry begin to come to life, whispering their secrets to me. It's as if my soul needs that space to breathe and dream. She doesn't measure her productivity in hours worked or the number of pieces finished, but in the quality, beauty, and soul that each tapestry radiates. This contrasts sharply with the culture of multitasking and constant partial attention that prevails in many work environments, where we try to do many things at once, but few with true depth, excellence, or satisfaction. I invite you to reflect on your own work and rest rhythms. Are you allowing yourself periods of uninterrupted concentration, where you immerse yourself fully in an important task, followed by breaks that truly recharge and nourish you, rather than simply switching from one screen to another? All of this, my dear friends, invites us to a fundamental reconsideration, a profound questioning of what it really means to be productive in the 21st century. Our society, especially in the West, tends to equate productivity almost exclusively with the number of tasks completed, the number of hours worked, an endless list of things done that often leaves us exhausted and empty. But from a more holistic, more integrated, and I would say more Japanese perspective, true productivity encompasses much more. It includes our physical and mental well-being, the quality of our personal relationships, our ability to generate creative and innovative ideas, our connection to our life purpose, and ultimately, our sense of fulfillment, joy, and meaning in life. The Japanese concept of Ikigai, that beautiful word that refers to our reason for being, to what makes us get up in the morning with enthusiasm, to the confluence of what we love, what the world needs, what we can be paid for, and what we are good at, often reveals itself not in the constant hustle and bustle in pursuit of external goals, but in those moments of stillness, reflection, and self-awareness that allow us to hear the subtle voice of our soul, of our heart. I remember Ricardo, a successful and admired businessman from Santiago, Chile. From a young age, he had worked tirelessly, building a small family business into a thriving and nationally recognized company. He had achieved all the material goals he had set for himself: a beautiful home, the ability to travel, professional recognition, and a seemingly comfortable and enviable life. However, when I met him, behind that facade of success was a man who felt deeply empty, chronically exhausted, and painfully disconnected from himself, his loved ones, and any genuine joy. "I've been incredibly productive by the world's standards, Naomi," he told me with palpable sadness in his voice and a lost look in his eyes. "My company makes millions. I've created hundreds of jobs, but I feel like I've lost something essential along the way, perhaps myself. I wake up tired, go through life on autopilot, and can't remember the last time I felt a real spark of enthusiasm for anything." Through a gradual process of simplifying his life, inspired by the principles of minimalism, and deliberately introducing moments of doing nothing into his previously crowded schedule, long solo walks on nearby Andean trails, learning to meditate, and taking up painting again, a forgotten passion from his youth that he had sacrificed on the altar of success. Ricardo began to reconnect with his Ikigai. He discovered that his true productivity, the kind that truly filled his soul, did not lie solely in growing his company's numbers, but in finding ways to contribute to the well-being of his community through a foundation he created, in cultivating deeper and more authentic relationships with his family and friends, and in expressing his creativity through his canvases. By reducing the external and compulsive doing, he found a much richer, more serene and satisfying inner being. His company, by the way, not only did not suffer, but began to flourish in a more organic and sustainable way, now led by a man who had found his center. So I invite you to ask yourself honestly, does my current definition of productivity include my overall well-being, my creativity, my sense of purpose, the quality of my relationships? Or am I chasing an endless list of tasks at the expense of my own soul, my own vitality? My dear friends, the Japanese paradox of time, this apparent contradiction between doing nothing and productivity, reveals a profound and liberating truth. In stillness, in the fertile emptiness of intentional doing nothing, lies an inexhaustible source of energy, clarity, creativity, and true productivity. Let me insist, this is not about abandoning our responsibilities or falling into indulgent laziness, but about recognizing with humility and wisdom that our mind, body, and spirit, like a well-tended garden or fertile field, need periods of rest, of fallow, to regenerate and flourish with renewed vigor. By consciously integrating Ma into our days, by cultivating the spaciousness of Yutori in our attitude and environment, by allowing ourselves precious moments of Boketo, and by learning to balance focused, deep action with generous, restorative rest, we not only become more effective and creative in what we do, but we also exponentially enrich the quality of our lives in ways that mere busyness and constant hustle can never achieve. We discover, almost with amazement, that we have more time than we thought, that ideas and solutions flow more easily when we stop forcing them, and that joy, peace, and deep meaning can be found not only in the achievement of distant goals, but in the very experience of living each moment with greater presence, serenity, and gratitude. It is learning to work and live in a more human, more organic, more sustainable, and ultimately wiser way, aligned with the natural rhythms of life and not in constant struggle against them. As an old Zen proverb that my grandmother Akiko used to recite with a smile while tending her bonsai trees with infinite patience and love, pruning a twig here, wiring another there, in silent dialogue with the little tree, says, Kokoro shizuka naru toki, banbutsu utsukushi. When the heart is calm, all things are beautiful. And I would humbly add that when the heart is calm, all things are not only seen as beautiful, but are also done with greater clarity, beauty, purpose, and surprising effectiveness. I sincerely hope that these reflections on Japanese wisdom about time and the transformative power of doing nothing have offered you a new perspective, perhaps some relief, and some practical tools to navigate your days with greater peace, joy, and more authentic productivity. If these ideas have resonated with you, I warmly and enthusiastically invite you to join our growing community here at Encanto Minimalista. Subscribe to the channel to continue exploring together these ancient paths toward a simpler, fuller, and more meaningful life. And if this message has brought you a moment of calm, a spark of inspiration, or a new possibility, please give us a like. Your support, that small gesture, helps us enormously to bring these seeds of awareness and well-being to more people who may be longing for a respite from the hustle and bustle of modern life. Now, as always, I would love to hear from you, to read your thoughts and experiences. Comment below which Japanese practice for cultivating stillness, Ma, Yutori, Boketo, you feel you could integrate even in small doses into your life starting today, or what small change you are willing to make to honor the deep need to do nothing and recharge your being. Write My Sacred Time of Stillness if you resonate with the idea of integrating these conscious pauses for greater fulfillment and more humane productivity. Thank you so much for your time, your attention, and your presence. May you find the beauty and immense power that lies in stillness, and may all your doing always be imbued with a serene, centered, and deeply alive being.